Sylvieville. I'm trying to remember. Sylvieville trees. Sylvieville. See if I can get the address for this. Address. Why is it doing this to me? I love technology, right?
Right.
Why?
That's okay. We can go with what I just pulled up. So I just
Oh,
pulled up.
I got it.
Okay,
I got
go.
it now. 6150 Dixon Avenue West.
All right. So I'm just on the interactive map feature, right? So we're on interactive map and you can do this residential, commercial, it really doesn't matter. In the interactive map, it has this layers button right here.
Yeah.
I love the layers button. I was actually in here earlier today looking at parcel dimensions. This is one way you can see what the parcel is right here. It gives you if we zoomed out a little further, it would show you all the property lines.
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of fun that way. You can see all the property lines. Other things in here, just so you guys know, is like you could do parcel acres. You can do parcel dimensions and it'll zoom you in depending on what you choose to where you need to be. So like this shows you how long the property line is. So this is kind of handy. Sometimes people in town or out in the country, they'll be like, hey, how much, what's the distance on the front of my property line? You're like, I don't know, we'll get a tape measure, right? No, you can log in here, look up the property and then go to parcel dimensions. It'll tell you what the dimensions of that parcel are, the sides and everything and all the intricate measurements. So that's kind of fun there. So we're looking at this property here, which looks like, I'm just trying to, let's see. If you zoom out, like if I choose something like parcel dimensions and I've gotten further away from that, it must maybe be this one here.
It is. That's it.
Okay. So if you go here, number one, you can access the plot map. So if you click plot map, once I just clicked on the property and it popped up the parcel information. And now it gave me the plot map. So if you were truly looking for a plot map, which it opened on my other screen, there's your plot maps there, right? So it's this property here. So there's a plot map. So if somebody needed a plot map, there you go. That's how you would pull that up the easiest way. And you can do this. The property doesn't have to have been on the market before. It doesn't have to sell. As long as it's in the county records, you can pull that up. In addition to that, you can pull up the property report here, and this will tell you, like, this is zoning A40, so it's Ag 40 is the zoning.
Right.
Right. The general plan is Ag, you see an unincorporated area. So this kind of gives you some property details that person might find useful, because now we know that it's not zoned commercial, it's zoned Ag. So somebody would need to go to the county office and talk with them about what's an incorporated area. So you'd go to the city of Dixon actually and go talk with them. This is cool too, because it also shows you what school district it is in. Mm-hmm. And the flood data map. So that's something else you can pull. Again, I just clicked on the property, so I could do the same thing for this property over here. And you can pull up tax information as well. The tax information is a little bit more detailed than that last screen we had up. So here is where you can get the owner information. It's got the tax ID, which is the APN number.
Right.
As you scroll down, it'll show you the tax rates. Down here, it has the lot square footage and lot acres. Land use for the county is agricultural property and agricultural there for land use. They'll give you a sales score if it's got one. And then it also has the marketing. And so this was a good example. Good job. Thank you, Greg. But like this one, right? We had Edward Schroeder Senior, and then we turned it into the Edward Schroeder Trustee and the Schroeder Trust and Ken and Cheryl Schroeder. So it kind of shows you the progression. This one's been kept in the family for a really long time, passed down from one generation to the next, it looks like. But so if I were going to send mail to this one, Sam, for your question earlier, I'd send it to Ken and Cheryl Schroeder.
Okay.
And not the trust.
Okay.
But this shows you, you've got your sale history and marketing information.
Thank you. That's all the information I needed right there. So
Yeah, if they have mail news.
And
Oh,
this
they have
was under
Melrose?
layers.
This was what?
Not this page, but the plot map, which
Uh-huh.
is super important. That was under layers.
That, so yeah, I'll go back to that here in a second. There was a couple different ways to get there. Azeb had asked a question about Melrose. If there was Melrose, where would it show up? And it would show up right here under the special assessment amount. So here's your special assessments. So everybody's going to have some assessments. All properties have, because the voters keep voting stupid assessments in. Stop voting special assessments, people. Start voting no. Okay. There, my soapbox for the day. Stop giving us more property taxes. They're high enough. Okay. Normally up here at the top, this one's an SID assessment and an SID standby charge. That's for the Solano Irrigation District. It's ag property, and so they have access to the SID irrigation. It's part of our property taxes out there if you're serviced by SID. If you were in town, and I can show you a different example of one, it may be listed here as Melrose. It may be listed, so they've gotten around like having to disclose that there's Melrose, but they don't call it that anymore. So now it's like a CFD charge or a school district charge, which can amount to a pretty penny, but you'll see it here in the special assessments. Your county taxes for Solano County are 1%. So everybody gets a 1% in property taxes plus the special assessments. On average, it's going to end up in like the 1.1 to 1.2 range. That would be considered average. Everybody's going to see some special assessments here. Even for like this property, I'd say this is like your average is going to be about $1,000 for like most residential properties. This one obviously isn't a residential property. New builds, your special assessments are totaling somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000. Okay, so your tax rate on new builds is bumping into that 1.6 range, like 1.6, 1.7. It's really high.
Wow.
So yeah, so if you've got somebody looking at newer build properties, then one resale, it's really easy to see what the property taxes are because you can go in there and pull it up if it's already sold once. But if you're going into a new community development, you want to ask that builder what their tax rate is ending up finalizing out to with the special assessments. Okay. Sam, to go back to your question here, the plot map itself, I just got by clicking on the property and then clicking on plot map, which downloaded then the plot map to my computer so that I could open it up. And that was that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but you got into this layers
Yes.
part. Okay.
Yeah, so the layers, and let's so to get into layers, let's go to a little better zone because this one is not my favorite, only because the parcels are so big it's hard to see. So let's go and we'll stay with country property for the moment, just so you can see like on regular like 5-acre parcels. This is more of what it looks like. So if we go into anywhere in interactive maps, you hit layers. And then I've got parcels selected. And then if I click parcel dimensions, it's going to zoom me in to the layer in which it starts pulling those dimensions up.
That's awesome. I
And
had
then-
no idea.
Yeah, I love layers. So this was one of those things where I was like, there was a BAREIS training offered, and I was like, I've been doing real estate for like 13 years at this point. Like, really, truly, what more could I learn? I'm in BAREIS every day. Why would I want to go to a BAREIS training? But I was like, well, I don't have anything planned, so let's attend anyways. And I learned all about layers, and I'm like, I'm so glad, right? You're never too into this business to learn new information and attend trainings. So I always recommend attending the BAREIS trainings now. But this shows you all of that, your acreage, your, how big the properties are. Let's go over to, yeah. Oh, that's not where I wanted to go. Don't search on that bar if we're in the map. Via del Sol. Here's on a city, right? So now we're in town with like regular residential lots. Same thing here. It's got all the measurements of the lot sizes and stuff for you. So it's pretty cool on layers. I'm going to take the acres out because we don't need it over here. Just leave those dimensions. And just for kicks, I'm going to go in here and go to tax information. So this one here, when we look at the taxes, see, it's got this, it doesn't technically have Melrose, but it has CFD number 11, which is the fire department number 11. And here's that tax amount. So their special assessments over there in the Southtown neighborhood usually total around $3,000 a month or $3,000 a year. I apologize, that's a year, not a month, which equates to just under 300 bucks a month, right? We're looking at like 250 bucks a month. So just something to keep in mind there. And this is always a good way to go in there and see what those special assessments are. The special assessments, and the other way to do this, so if you've got somebody that's really serious about putting in an offer on a property, again, you can go into property ID. It's an NHD provider, a natural hazard zone disclosure provider. So if you go to their website, you can create a free account. And when you sign into that account, it's super handy. I just used this the other day as well. It never leaves me stayed signed in no matter how many times I click that box, but we're just going to keep doing it. Under here, under resources at the top, once you're logged in, you can go to the property tax estimator, and you can do this without an account. You just can't pull up specific property information. So from here, let's say I can go to look up property tax information. I can look up by either APN or address by toggling back and forth. So if I go address, let's look up 818 Stonegate. We're going to hit search. I'm going to hit select once I've confirmed that that's the right property. Here's the previous assessed value. Here's the tax rate with everything. This is what it factors out to, 1.18. The direct assessments on this one are only like 330 or 352 bucks. Here's where if your buyers are purchasing this property, you can plug in the purchase price there. And then you can plug in the estimated closing dates. And then you hit calculate. And for your buyers, this is going to tell them what their new annual property tax rate is going to be based on the assessments and the county tax rate. It's also going to tell them what their supplemental property taxes are. So remember, when somebody buys a property at the close of escrow, they're going to pay their property taxes based on the current owner's property taxes. So they're going to pay their prorated property taxes based on the current owner's property taxes. So when they close, they'll pay their prorated amount based on this, because the tax bills have already been issued, right? One's already been paid. The second one's coming up due. The tax bill's already been issued. So their tax bill for this year is going to be the same as the current owners. Now, hopefully their mortgage company is setting aside taxes for them if they have an impound account based on what their new tax rate's going to be. So when they get this supplemental property tax bill in like 4 to 6 months, and it is taking the county a while right now to get you those supplemental property tax bills, hopefully your mortgage company already has money set aside for that. In most cases, they do. So your buyer can call up their mortgage company and say, hey, I got a supplemental property tax bill for $3,000. Do I have money in my account in order to cover that? And in most cases, the mortgage company will say like, yeah, we've got that set aside, or, well, we can go ahead and pay it. It may cause a small shortfall that we'll have to correct. And mortgage companies usually correct their shortfalls in January. So what'll happen is next January, if they do end up with a short in their impound account, they'll send out a notice and say, hey, you can either pay it, we're short $1,500. You can either pay it in a one-time lump sum, or we can increase your mortgage for the next year to get it back on track. But this is how you find out what that supplemental property tax is. And this is a big number because the current tax amount is kind of high anyways. And then they've already paid this bill, which is partially due. And then this new portion of it is due. And again, this takes like 4 to 6 months to get the supplemental property tax bills for your buyers. 4 to 6 months. The county has to go through, they have to register the sale. They have to do an assessment overview. Generally speaking, your tax bill is going to be based on the purchase price. But if you purchase that property below market value, it may not always be the purchase price. So just a heads up on that as well. So, so this is a great tool to kind of get an idea. And I would never say this is going to be the exact amount. You'd say this is going to be like an approximation of what you're going to be looking at property tax wise and for your supplemental property tax bill. Okay. On back to BAREIS. Anybody have questions about that?
That's awesome.
You found that on,
Yeah.
that was on BAREIS, the property ID?
The property ID is a separate, it's a property ID is an NHD provider. So it's propertyid.com is the website. You can create a free account. And then you can go into resources and go property tax estimator.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm gonna see if they have an app for that, because that's good to know for when you're taking people out to look at houses, just in case they spring it on you. Like, what's the property tax? If you don't have that MLS paper in front of you, this is good to pull it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they have an app or not, but I do know that I've pulled this up on like Safari or Chrome on my phone. So it is accessible on your
Okay,
phone.
thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Amy, have you ever had
yep.
anybody back out after they've realized how much the property taxes are?
I have had people decide not to write offers after they found out what the property taxes were.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And like I said, this one's pretty low. You start going over like what I pulled up here, like Villa del Sol gets a little higher. You start pulling up the newer properties like over on, let's see, oops, I'm in the wrong address bar again. Hold on. If we go 149. Oh, it's Kodiak. I was like, why isn't that the right? I was close. Klondike, Kodiak.
At what point can you tell, like your buyers, about property taxes? Like when you start looking at houses, like before, I guess, at any time, as long as they know and they're aware that they're gonna be paying a yearly tax?
Yeah, I mean,
Not yearly,
that's-
but if you do, in your mortgage, right? Because that's, I guess that's in your mortgage. If
It's
you're
in your-
doing the, mhm.
yeah, it's in your mortgage. So technically the lender should cover it. However, I always bring it up. It's something we talk about when I sit down for the buyer's presentation, the supplemental property taxes and that supplemental property tax bill. Because if you've got a buyer that's tight on money, like they're getting assistance for like down payment and closing costs, they have no money in the bank, they're going to get hit with this tax bill in like 4 months that they're not going to be able to pay. And they're going to be like up a creek, right? So we need to know what that supplemental property tax bill is and have a conversation about it to make sure that they're making a good decision moving forward. The last thing that you want is for your buyers to get this bill in the mail and panic and then hate you because they think it's your fault, right? It's not, but they might. Okay. Klondike 3,500, that's a little newer property and it goes up from there. So I don't think it's ever too early to start talking about the property taxes. And that's even like when we start talking to buyers and you're like, perfect, like your payment, you're saying $2,700 for your payment. Is that going to be just, are you talking just principal and interest? Or are you talking like principal, interest, taxes, like property taxes and your insurance? And they're gonna be like, taxes and insurance, what's that? And you're gonna be like, well, here, let me tell you about it, right? So it's never too early to have that conversation about it. And if they're thinking that, hey, this payment's going to encompass everything, and then we start looking at newer homes, like you just kind of want to know what that supplemental tax is going to, or not the supplemental, but the special assessments are going to kind of total out to be. so that you can go in with informed buyers. And if you've got somebody at the top of their price range is 600,000, and now we've got assessments of $300 a month, that could bump them out of even qualifying for that home. Right?
The special assessments, those, how are those paid?
The
Like
special
typically?
assessments are paid as part of the property tax. It makes up the final property tax.
Okay,
So you pay your
got it,
1%
okay.
to the county and then the special assessment charges.
Got it. So like when you add it onto your payment, like if you have the PITI and all that in there, that's included in that.
That's included.
Got it.
So most lenders in our area usually calculate the property taxes for payment purposes at like 1.2, 1.25, somewhere in that range. And you can always ask the lender what they're utilizing. And then if you come across properties that are higher than that, we just need to run that by the lender and make sure your buyers still qualify. Some lenders, if they're like online lenders, not local, and even Keller Mortgage, sometimes if you're utilizing them, they don't use the right number for property taxes. So just double check. Oftentimes, if I'm working with a lender I'm not familiar with, I'll ask for a copy of like the estimated settlement statement that kind of shows the payment breakdown and the charge breakdown. And that way I can look at what they're calculating out for like property insurance and taxes to make sure they're utilizing the correct numbers and those numbers look right. I've worked with banks like USAA that calculated property taxes at like 0.5%. And now we're halfway through the transaction and they're realizing that, oh, it's like 1.5%. And now these people don't qualify for anything. Right? So we always want to make sure that our lenders are using accurate numbers, and like lenders that are out of area might be using the wrong numbers for like homeowners insurance. Like your average homeowners insurance for residential neighborhoods should be about $1,200. It's going to be $1,200 to $1,400 a year in the most part. Some are a little lower, some are a little higher, but on average it's somewhere in there. Obviously country property is going to be different, right? Especially in the fire ranges. Then you're talking, $1,200 a month, but what's a whole nother thing? It's going to be $1,400 to $1,200 like a year. And sometimes lenders that are out of area, like in other states, your insurance, your property insurance is going to be higher. You've got tornadoes, you've got hurricane areas, you've got hail areas. So theirs might run higher. So you just want to look at what numbers they're utilizing. In addition, on this layers map, just some other things you can pull up on here. So that, right, we just touched on like parcel information. County recorded sales are in here. So if you wanted to look at the county recorded sales in the past 0 to 3 months, these would be residential sales. So like this property may have been listed. This was just a quick claim deed of trust. So somebody was added to the property, right? The seller was Carson, and it looks like we added somebody to title. And some of these maybe you might find in the MLS as well. This looks like a grant deed, which was like a traditional sale, right? But this is a good way, this county recorded sales is a good way to look at, hold on, I'm going to zoom out. New home sales. If you want to know what the new homes are closing for, because those don't generally report in the MLS, and maybe you've got a property that you've got somebody that just moved into that property and you kind of want to know where the sales are landing right now because they have to turn around and move. Maybe they were military. If we scroll down here, right? So these are probably like new home sales. So if you start clicking on here, you can get the information of what these new homes are actually closing at. And these aren't reported in the MLS. So that would be under the county recorded sales section of the layers.
Do you know how much it costs to add someone to the title?
It's not generally super expensive. It's usually, I mean, if you could pay somebody to pull up the grant deed for you or to draw up the package for you and then the recording costs. So maybe a couple $100. Foreclosure data, these are like defaults in the last 30 days. You want to know who's in default. Now we've got little exclamation points. So this person's got a notice of default. Here's another person with a notice of default.
So then those would be like good people to hit up then. if they're in a, like a default, like, hey, like, let's sell your house before you lose it or something and at least make money off of it.
Yeah, so this could be like, this is somebody who's at least 90 days behind on their payments that they've been recorded with a notice of default. So it's somebody that they could potentially be getting caught up. They may not be, but yeah, it'd definitely be somebody worth kind of checking in on and following up to see if you can offer any help.
And so this is under layers and then default, or foreclosure and then default.
Foreclosure. Trustee auctions, you want to know what properties, you got investors that want to know what properties are coming up to auction because they have to post the notice of auction. Hold on, we're going to take this county reported sales off. Oh, here. Dun, dun, dun. Look at this. So this one, if you've got investors, here might be, you may be like, hey, this 116 Sterling, it's got a trustee sale date of, well, it looks like it was recorded on 7/20 and the date of the auction is set for 3/2. So that might be a good way for your cash investors to get in, your flippers to get in on properties.
Mm. Oh, sorry, I didn't know my mic was on.
Right?
Those
Wheels are
bells started going off, the wheels started turning.
I know, I'm getting a little more hopeful.
Right? So there's all sorts of cool things in here that you don't, if you want to know where the schools are, right? Like,
Amy, that section,
Yeah.
when you were just pulling up right now, how like it's supposed to sell in March. So those, you said like good for investors, so those would be good for like wholesalers also that can go and reach out, like if I'm working with a wholesaler, for them to reach out to them.
yeah, absolutely.
also.
Absolutely. And you can always reach out and kind of facilitate that sale, especially if you've got somebody that's gonna purchase the property and flip it and you're gonna get the
Yeah.
other transaction. Like I'd be willing to do some legwork now on a property that I may not make any money off this sale, that I'm gonna make money off the next sale. Right? Like they're gonna turn around and make it pretty and flip it and I'm gonna get that listing. I'll do some legwork on this purchase to help them facilitate that for free, potentially in order to get the higher listing.
Gotcha, okay.
So we got schools, oh, hazards, the hazard maps are on here under layers. So if you want to know if it's in a fire zone, that would be the state responsibility fire zone map. Let's zoom out further. It'll color code our map. We're going to get to the more exciting side of the highway over here. See, we got fire zones now. Hold on, I moved it again. There's our fire zone. So if you want to know if this house is in a high fire zone or a moderate, so if you click it, it'll tell you this is moderate. So the yellow is moderate. The orangish red color is high. And then there's like a purple color and that's like a very high. Or if you want to know if it's in a flood zone, we can go FEMA flood data. Here's all the flood zones. Right? So super fun. Little data's there. Current listings, expired listings, you can pull those up. So there you go. Was that helpful?
Very helpful. Is this recording?
It is recorded.
Like
It is.
orangey, is that the flood zone? Like the orange, yeah, that color?
So the orange is not the high flood zone. So if you click on it, it'll tell you this is an area of, it's area X. So they don't require flood insurance. Where you start getting into flood zones, like if we come over here to, hold on. All right, so like this purple area, purple is A, that's gonna require flood insurance for the most part. That purple area. And anything higher than a purple area. Your orange, generally speaking, doesn't, your blue does. Or sometimes these have like elevations. So this is AE. So this is single family housing where base flood elevations are provided. So some may require flood insurance. If the elevation's high enough, it won't. Okay, helpful?
Very.
All right. I love the layers on the map. It's really fun. All right. Then I'm going to wrap up for today. The good news is Abby was on the call today, although I forgot to make her a host. So she's my assistant, and she is now in charge of taking these videos and putting them onto the training spreadsheet for you guys. So that's good news because it'll happen much faster now.
What's it gonna be listed under? The name of,
So this will be under, so underneath the Ignite series on the bottom, there will be, there's a new little section down there, and anything that didn't fall under the Ignite, will go under that section. So you'll start seeing new trainings pop up there. We're also working on transitioning platforms to Entreport. So you'll be getting added to that in the next week or two, and we'll start kind of rolling that out. It'll be a little more inclusive system. We'll be able to reach out to you and contact you. It also have the libraries there of all the video libraries and seller video libraries, buyer and random ones, the Ignite series. So you'll be able to check all that out. And then all the documents that'll be useful will also be in that library as well. So I'm excited about that. She's been working really hard at learning that system so that I didn't have to. So that we could roll that out and kind of give you an all-inclusive platform that you can log into to be able to access everything. Okay.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Toodles.